the Stump the Chump session.
Yes.
Fred, are you out there?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Bill and Andy, are you guys still out there?
Yep, I'm here.
Who else do we
Yes,
have jumping into our chump land?
I think that's it. Jose's not going to be able to make it, he said.
Yep, and I tried to wrangle Hannah to answer your question, Kevin. Both her and Jose are doing a go live today. So they weren't sure if they were going to be able to make it or not. They're about 10 minutes from our office, but we tried to entice them with a drink after work, and that still didn't work. So here in the Stump the Chump, I went ahead and put those in here. Anything that came in through the questions or via an email, Fred, I believe I got all those too, but we're going to double check just to make sure I'm not going crazy. Or at least that's not the reason I think I'm not going crazy.
All right.
Do you want to go ahead and start out here on the first one? Erin Miner had reported that in Visual Studio report, she has 4 parameters on a sub-report, 3 in the top report, and she wants to sub-report the 4th parameter to link to the table group, but can't get the 4th parameter to even show up in the add parameter option for the sub-report.
So Erin, if I'm understanding this right, you need to be able to pass from your parent report to the sub-report, the 4th parameter, or are you trying to go the other way around?
Other way.
You can't send things from a sub-report up to the parent.
Okay. So if I have a 4th like filter I want added to the top report, what's the best way to do that? And these are both on the SQL level.
So you'd want to do that. You want to do it in the highest item. So in this case, if you'll want that 4th parameter in the parent report, because you can pass things down to the sub-report, but you can't pass things back up.
Oh, okay. So how do I have that filter based on group? How do I have that little sub-report filter based on group?
So you could pass in, let's say you're grouping on customer ID. You could, your sub-report, you would have a 4th parameter for customer ID, and in the group of the table for your parent report, you're going to have your sub-report, and one of the parameters you're going to pass in is the group ID of the row you're on.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was easy and painless.
Okay. And vendor prepayments, we hit this earlier. You want to go ahead and read that out, Fred?
So Gary Goodnight said, we make prepayments to some international vendors. Epicor instructed us to enter a $0 invoice to clear these advance payments after receipt of the products. And then I got there we go. Some of these advance payments did not clear after posting the $0 invoice. Does anybody have more information on best practices for clearing the advance? And this was you and I didn't know the answer to this. If anybody else in the audience has an idea, if you'll raise your hand or type something into the questions, we can unmute you and you can chime in. We would gladly accept the assistance.
Lori, are you out there? I know you guys do that at your company.
Lori is out there. I'll unmute Lori just in case. Lori may not be paying attention though. Yeah, she shows it attached, but I'm not able to get her attention here. Okay. Hey, Lori Welch, are you there? Sorry,
Yeah,
Calvin.
there's no way to nudge or make sure she's there. So I would say we can double check with her on this, Gary.
Let me make a note of that real quick,
Does
Calvin.
the $0 invoice show up on the GRNI, gross receipts not invoice? Gary, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, got it.
Okay. So, what was your question? I actually had somebody step in just as you was bringing all this up, but it's clear now.
You had entered the $0 invoice trying to remove these advanced payments
Yes.
after the receipt of products. Are the receipt of products still showing up on the gross receipts and not invoice, but having a $0 value?
No, they're not showing up on. You're talking about the received, not invoiced, unvouchered.
Correct.
Yeah, no, they're not showing up on there. And if you go into the actual transactions, they show that they've been invoiced. If you go to the PO lines and go through all, it shows that they've been invoiced and the PO itself is closed on some of them. Some of them are not closed, but I tend to believe it's probably something we're doing internally that's causing this. I'm not sure what it would be that like a box is not checked or something of that nature.
And the $0 invoice is tied to the PO, which is where the advance payment would be tied to as well, or was the advance payment just made as miscellaneous?
It's supposed to be tied to the PO, and whenever I went in to look at some of them, they showed that it was actually tied to the PO.
Okay, as long as it's linked to the PO, I would think that the $0 invoice would clear it out. I could see it not clearing it if it was a miscellaneous prepayment not tied to a purchase order, because then there's nothing to tie back to.
Correct. Well, I'm writing notes down on here, so I'll go back and do some of my some verification and double checking on our end.
Sounds good. If I can get in touch with Lori, periodically hear from her during the in between the meetings, so I'll touch base and find out what she has, because I know her company also does prepayments with their facility in Germany.
Okay.
Okay, next one was from Kevin. Parameter on a BAQ, trying to add a parameter to a BAQ that is used as table criteria. If it's blank, show all records.
We answered that one already.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm like, this one sounds like a familiar, but I'm going to double check it.
Yeah.
Susan, I've been having a field day while Phil was doing his presentation trying to get this to work. Just trying to get a BAQ to tie back and populate a grid based on a field value that's in there, or setting a static filter for it, trying to allow it to go. Anybody else have ideas on this before I let her know what rabbit hole I was running down? Because I'm not sure my rabbit hole's right, because it still didn't work for me, Susan.
Okay.
Just trying to be honest here. I'm like trying to do it in the last session and monitor the chat at the same time. So yeah, a little bit fun. I think I need new eyes now. So
Well,
what
I
I
wasn't
was
using a BAQ. I was using a data view.
yeah,
And
whether you use a data view, a BAQ, or a business object view is how I joined it.
okay.
But then when I was looking at on my panel card, when I linked the BAQ options, I was doing the on or null. So if
Okay.
nothing is there, would it return everything? And then empty value, I could also turn around and say what to use, like an asterisk or a percent, anything starting with.
Okay.
So this was the avenue I was trying to go down when I was taking my view options through the BAQ options
Mm-hmm.
to the where list and limiting what comes back in my where clause. Because here they do have an option to say on or null, which is one of the things that you were looking to include it.
Yeah. So I don't know where I would, is that on the,
The view
I don't know, because I
options
did
for
a
the
data,
grid.
I did a data view and then just added a text box and picked that field from the data view. So I don't know if there's that on or null is in the text box properties. I don't see anything like that.
Okay, what screen did it go to?
Do you want me to share my screen or?
Yep, I can do that. Or I can turn around and show you how I was doing. I just did
Okay.
open sales orders and linked them, and then set my parent and child column. But yeah, let me go ahead and make it a
Okay.
presenter, Susan.
Okay.
I got her as a presenter now, Calvin.
Thank you.
And we
Okay.
can see your screen, Susan.
Oh, okay. So I added this data view to the accounts payable invoice to get some fields for the PO detail. So I joined it on the PO number and PO line. And then I added the event to fill the table. And then here are my fields. So this one works when there is a PO number on the AP invoice. The PO detail class description will fill in, but the other two that I wanted to add are calculated fields and they are not working. So I don't know what to do about that, but that's a whole nother issue. So if I look at a PO or an invoice that has a purchase order, give me a second here. So these all have purchase orders. If I just go into one and then go to the detail. So my class is working. These two are not. This is giving the initial value of that calculated field, but so I don't know how to fix those. But then if I go to an invoice that doesn't have a PO, so this one, it gives me this record not found. I can't find the table, I guess. I don't know. Because the PO is 0 in the invoice. If I go to the detail here, this PO is 0. There's no PO. So it's just giving me that big, huge error. I mean, I don't want it to be filled in because there's no PO, but I don't want it to give me a big error. So on my, in my data view, I tried adding filters here. I did it without the, I don't know. I couldn't find any documentation on how to do this. So I thought that would work. If I said just get the data when it's not equal to 0, I don't know.
You might need to do that same thing that Andy was showing earlier. Andy, where you were doing, what was it, question, square bracket, table, dot, column?
So it would be question mark, it's curly brace, and then it's the customer, it's the table name dot field name close curly brace. But I don't know if that would be the same for here or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but might be worth a shot.
I mean, so I'd say if it's
Go
greater
ahead and do
than,
greater than 0. And then at the beginning of your line, do a question, open curly brace, and then close your curly brace after PO num. Am I saying that right, Andy?
do I need to have
Yes.
the single quotes in there at all?
No, you shouldn't need that.
Okay.
I mean,
don't
I
know
have
if this
no idea if this will work or not, but
Well,
theoretically you should.
I've tried everything.
But if they follow the same pattern that Andy was showing earlier, it might.
No.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you're running a get by ID, which if it runs, if it's trying to run with a 0, it's going to throw an error. Unfortunately, that's definitely a problem that I've ran into before.
So is there a way in the event to say only do this event if
Yeah,
it's
you could do a
greater than
condition,
0?
can't you? Go to your
Yeah,
toolbox
I
and just search for
Um,
condition. I think you could just type in.
Yeah.
There you go.
whoops.
So the first
The
one,
data view or the first one?
I generally use the first one, but there might be others here who have more experience with that than I do. But you'd want the condition first
Okay.
before.
Let's see. Can I just, okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, basically what you want to do is under advanced is your param. So here you can have multiple parameters. And then this is basically where you put your expression of what is, you only want, well, what are we testing for? If the purchase order number is greater than 0?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would be whatever. So like
So it'd be curly brace.
Yep.
Looking at their help up there, it'd be like curly brace, PO detail
Well, so
dot.
it's probably do I want to do it for the AP? I don't know. I guess the PO detail.
Wouldn't it be your PO head? Because it dies when
Well,
it does the PO get detail. So how are you getting your PO detail?
Yeah.
This PO detail tracker search get by ID. So it actually looks at the
If you
PO
go
num
to
and the
advanced-
PO line. Because I'm connecting the AP invoice to the PO detail with the number and the line.
Okay, so you should be able to go AP invoice PO num is equal to 0,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then close your curly greater than 0.
Like
And
that.
then basically,
So no question mark or anything.
no, not in here.
Okay.
You shouldn't need that. Now the big problem is, unfortunately, is that your REST ERP isn't tied to the true, because you have to click on the true to create it,
Oh, okay.
and then you have to specify which event you want.
Okay. So I would have to recreate this rest.
Yeah. You just click on it
Oh,
there, which it may actually just take what you already have.
okay. Is there any way to tell that? How do you tell?
It should say, it's a good, if you go back, okay, go to parameters.
Okay.
Yeah, go to parameters and then true. Yeah, and then it took you to
It
the,
selects it.
so yeah,
Okay.
it was smart enough that it was able to move it to there, and it looks like, yeah, remembered. I double check your parameters are correct, but
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, AP invoice equals that PO line.
Mm-hmm.
So long as that PO number, if it's 0 or null in this instance, yeah, if it's greater
Can you
than
go
0,
back?
continue.
Let's go back to that parameters real quick before you hit the preview for your PO num. Nope, on the REST ERP,
Okay.
because I think we might have specified it wrong. Go to method parameters. Your PO num is AP INV DTL. So you might want to grab that, copy that text, and then in your condition,
Oh.
Make sure that we're using that.
yeah,
Okay.
because I don't think we were. Yeah, we were on AP invoice. So that's, you'll want to paste that in.
All right. My Paste does
Yeah,
not
the,
work very
the,
well.
the help that's popping up is sometimes in the way, isn't it? There you go.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
give it a shot.
All right. Let's see. Nope.
Ah,
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. Well, 'cause I'm wondering if it's coming out as null because it doesn't.
Well, I
I'm
looked in
wondering
the database and it's got zeros in there. So,
Let's go to the false for that.
oh, whoops. Wait. Am I in the right spot?
I think so.
So much.
There you
Okay,
go.
the false. What would I do
Go
there?
ahead and just do a dialogue, no PO found.
This one?
Sure. Just something simple.
And see, that's got the false on it. The other one doesn't have anything.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's what I'm wondering is if that gets ran every time because, yeah. No, anytime that I have to rearrange things to run, I normally end up having to recreate everything.
Yeah, so you might need to click the true again.
Oh,
There
Yeah,
we
see,
go.
now it's got the right thing on it.
yeah. Well, that's a bummer because I can't remember all the things I set. Oh my gosh.
They'll still be in there. So when you click yeah, they're still going to be in there on the
Yeah,
old
I
one.
know. It's a lot of back and forth.
Can you drag the true and move it to the other? I mean,
Oh.
that,
Worth a shot.
right?
Well, shoot. That didn't work.
Well, it's tied off of the original true, so if you just leave the other rest ERP blank and empty, it might just run.
Okay. Like
Can you
this?
delete that? Can you delete that REST ERP that's blank? And it'll just, no.
Oh, I
Darn
didn't
it.
like that.
Sorry,
Oh,
thought it
dear.
would be an easy thing like that.
That's okay.
Alas, no.
So you think I can just drag it from here? I don't know how I did that before.
I think you clicked on the REST ERP on the left, and then that gave you a little dot, and you could drag them together. That maybe go in the other direction.
Because it should, at that point, pull over to the rest. So the first rest
Now
of the
my
ERP,
true
which
went
is
away. You see that? The true went away. I don't know how I did that.
I might
Oh,
be okay.
okay. Well, I'll try it.
The worst thing that it is, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I've just been struggling with these for 6 weeks and not been able to convert any of my windows. Oh, well, look at that. I didn't get an error.
Hey.
Oh my gosh. Well, let me make sure that the other one works.
Yeah, I would make sure that the other ones are actually pulling in, but it might be stopping if it falls under the other one.
It is pulling it in. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy.
No testing
Here we
being
go.
done in this session.
That's amazing. Oh, I'm so happy.
So yeah, right now that ERP isn't doing anything. The first
Yeah.
one, other than being the endpoint of the true.
I can just move all that. I'll just do that later. Fix
Yeah.
all that. But okay, yay. Do I need the false thing here?
No,
Probably don't anymore.
So I can just leave it like that. Okay.
yeah, but you would use that, say, if you did want to show them a message about, oh, hey, there is no PO numbers or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
where I heard this from, but somebody told me that they had issues with a condition if it didn't have both a true and a false. Whether or not the
Okay.
false did anything. So you might want to test it before assuming.
Well, can I just
I know
leave
when
that
I
dialogue and
recommend to
not have it
people,
do anything?
yeah, you can leave the message box and just have it do nothing.
Okay. Oh, I
It
keep
at least
forgetting. I feel
make
like I have
sure
to
that you
drag.
have every path covered in the design.
Okay. So any idea why the calculated fields don't show up? wait, when I go here
You'd have
and I mean, they're there. If I type
to
in
show up in the
PO,
drop down when you're typing it.
yeah, then I put, they all show here.
Tran type, yep.
But it's not for every PO, it's showing the initial value. So if I go to one of these that has a PO, it's always showing this, which if I go look at the field help, it says the initial value for that is this value right here. But this is actually an inventory PO, not an other, which is what this stands for. So
So it should be purchased to stock or purchased to
yeah,
inspection or purchased to a job. Yeah.
yeah, but it's always showing the unknown thing. And then the job, I haven't tested one with a job, but it's white and it's a calculated field too. So since these are both white, I'm thinking this one isn't going to work either.
Let's
I
take
don't
a
know
look
how.
at your joins again.
Okay.
Between the parent and the view.
Okay. In the data view, you mean?
Yep.
So
That line in PO num, but the calculation for the PUR unknown should be coming from the purchase release. But you're not joining on the release, so it may be linking on a different release. Because the
well,
line type for a PO is stored on the purchase release, not on the
yeah.
PO.
So I noticed that I might have to do another data view to get the train. It wouldn't be the calculated tran type. It'd actually be tran type from the release. But then how would I
Right.
get the maybe is the job on the release too? Okay. I guess I can try adding another data view to the release.
Yep. Because the release would have that info, not the PO detail.
Okay.
That may be
In
why
my
they're coming
classic,
back blank also.
okay, in my classic window, I just have a data view to the PO detail and it actually pulls in the calculated fields. I mean, I don't know, I don't really understand how those calculated fields work when they're not fields in the database, but it works in the classic view, so.
Well, the business object should be calculated before you get that by using the business object versus using your own BAQ to pull this. So you're
Okay.
using the AP invoice and the table PO detail.
Yeah,
If you change your service schema to a BAQ, wrote your own BAQ and joined them PO number, PO line, and PO release, you should be able to get all that info back then.
okay. Okay,
I just don't think it's in this data set because you're not linking all the way down to the release. Now, if the release is always one, or do you have multiple shipping releases on PO?
yeah, we can have multiple, so
Okay.
I
Then
haven't
don't hard code it. Otherwise, we're gonna say, if you can say that you're always got a 0, run with it.
no. Okay, well, this helped me a lot because now I know where to put that filter on the actual event.
Awesome. And like I was
So,
saying, always make sure that you have all paths have something just to be safe. So if you put a
okay,
condition in there, make sure you have a true, you have a false.
okay,
When I put a message box in that's yes, no, cancel, I make sure that I have all 3 taken care of.
okay. All right, thank you guys very much.
Good.
Awesome. Hold on one
Now I
second.
have to get back, I have to get all my windows converted by the end of the year. Now that I know,
So much
how
for
to
you
do
having holidays, yeah.
it. Oh dear. Okay.
I'll go ahead and pull this back and share the screen again. Really, I'm trying to. Okay, so our next one was Matthew Heck with a preview BAQ subquery. Kevin had mentioned earlier about possibly using a recursive, and we had that discussion. Were there any other ideas for this?
There is the get execution plan. So you can do actions on a BAQ, you can do actions get execution plan. And I believe you run that through SQL Profiler and it will help you, or not Profiler, but
Right.
I always change my subquery to the top.
Mike, I would
yeah, that's
check
what I started with. But depending on how
Let me ask
complex
you
it is,
this.
you may not be able to do
I
that.
didn't know that was the name, but if you do that, because I know you told me at one time, if I want to get from my phone pictures, because I asked you, how do you get pictures from my
Are you
phone
there,
sent
Matt?
to company email without using Gmail?
Yeah.
And you
Let's see if we can unmute Matt here just a minute. Are you there, Matt?
I didn't typically, who am I going to ask? Scott's not here.
We're getting a lot of background noise from Matt.
Yeah, still remember on that one.
Who else am I going to ask? Scott Sikorsky? He's
I
going to
think
say,
Matt's
I go
busy
ahead.
with something else. I'm going to mute him again. So we'll have to come back to that. Oh, are you there, Kelvin?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Is Susan out there? I don't see her on the list anymore.
Susan's under organizer
Yeah.
because we.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Okay.
here.
She moved over to presenter. Got it. So I was able to confirm. Yes, I got the exact same error. I don't get the icon either for MSG files, but if I put in Excel, XLSX, I do get the icon. It does seem to be working. If I
Yeah.
look at it in Classic, you don't really look at the graphic for the icon. You just double click it and it opens it.
Right. Yeah,
So
I have.
do you
I've
have
had
a
a case
bug report
in.
or anything? A
I
problem
have a
case?
case. Yeah, I have a case in, and they have not been able to duplicate it. So I don't
didn't have a
know.
problem duplicating it.
Well, I'm gonna tell them that. Oh, I don't know. I don't know what it could be.
Okay. If you can, go ahead and either send me the case number in the question window or just email it over. And I'll make sure
Okay.
that we include that in the notes. If anybody else has this issue, they can jump on the same bandwagon. The
Okay.
more people that complain about the case, the quicker that case gets escalated to a fix.
Yeah. Okay.
Chad's asking, are you using ECM for the files?
No, but we have another problem with that. You can't view the ECM files either. That's a separate case. It asks, well, for us, we're single sign-on, so it's asking us to sign in, but we're passwordless, so we can't sign in. So it's frustrating.
Have you rolled that up to Nathan Anderson? Has he jumped on that?
No, I think it was Clive has my case. Let me double check here.
If Nathan's on that, because I remember seeing a discussion thread with him and single sign-on issues tying to third-party applications.
Okay.
He may have some answers on what needs to be done with single sign-on since the credentials aren't getting passed right to DocStar.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the case is with Clive, and he's been talking to development about it. So, should I tell him to check with Nathan Anderson?
Yeah, have to check with Nathan Anderson because Nathan was working on some single sign-on issues.
Okay.
Awesome. Our next one here was from David Height today, and it was sending out a remittance advice to each customer when you send electronic ACH. So they're getting a remittance advice created, but it's the PDF with all of them. Does that require advanced printing and routing to do this by remittance? Kind of. So there's a couple ways to do this, David. If you use advanced printing and routing, you can distribute them where if the customer changes, these remittance or vendor changes, these remittance go off to this one. These remittance go off to the next vendor. DocStar, I believe, also offers the ability to distribute these, doesn't it? Is there a DocStar user that's used the workflows for storing documents on the call? I know it worked in APM because people would use that in Alltech, but I think DocStar offered the same thing for 10 users. Same thing with when customer statements get generated, DocStar can turn around and route them to the different customers when the customer ID changes. So DocStar would be most likely be the second way to do this. And then I'm going to leave number 3 for Fred to talk about, because I know I'm just going to step in something here. But when you do the report as an SSRS report, Fred, how does SSRS handle distributions? There was either AS or IS package needed to distribute to the emails on the forms.
So if you're printing an invoice group, SSRS isn't going to help you with this because it's still going to be one solid report. If you have subscriptions, what you can do is you can set up to call the subscription with parameters. So basically you're calling the report over and over with different parameters, one for each of the invoices that you need to do. So you run a query ahead of time that you'll pull the invoice number and let's say the email address it's going to. And then you can use that with your subscription. It's what's called query-driven subscription. And so basically it calls the report, sends the invoice number in, and then uses the email address from the first query to send it to the proper person. So that's with what are called query-driven subscriptions, I think is the right title. If you don't have the advanced SSRS, which I forget what they're calling that now, that allows you to do query-driven subscriptions, you can actually just do a Google search for how do I do query-driven subscriptions on my own, and it'll show you how to do that, where you can set up your own query to pull back what you need for the invoice number and the to address, and then call the report correctly, get the where you want to send it to, and send it off on its way. But I think it's Enterprise Edition of SQL that has the data-driven subscriptions.
And then Chad Blanchard over at ID Plate also mentioned that not doing it in DocStar, they were using APR to do these. But what the process that you use on the remittance advice would be the same thing that would use on customer statements.
Yep.
Did that make sense, David? I'll go ahead and unmute you here.
Yeah, it makes sense. We were looking at advanced printing and routing, which I knew would do it. I was just curious if there was a clever way to do that without all the breaks and stuff in there, but it sounds like I'm heading down the right path.
I think you are, especially if you're using an Epicor canned report. Advanced printing and routing is probably your easier solution.
I would agree after that conversation. Thanks, guys.
And it's probably cheaper than DocStar.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Awesome. Kind of give me a second here to turn around and share. I've got to find a few of these and make sure that we throw them in here. Emailed in questions. Kevin had a question here, doing data-directed BPMs only work in production. The is production condition does not function as intended for cloud.
So I can take this one. So Epicor suggested looking at the ISYS agent file root dir value, and then you can use that in a function to find out whether you're in production or not. So I'm going to grab presenter from you, Kelvin.
That works.
Show my screen. Come on, which screen? There we go. Okay, Kevin. So what I did is I just wrote a really simple BAQ so that I knew what I'd be looking for. So the BAQ is just on ice.sys agent, and I looked at a few values. And the reason I did that is because when I pulled back just server root dir, because we're on-prem, ours is blank. But when you write your BAQ, figure out what that value is for your production environment, okay? For my purposes, I think what I did is I grabbed the agent ID just so that I could write you a sample function here. So then I went over to functions. Give me a second and I'll bring that screen up. Where'd you go? You're over here. So I just made a quick function called isProductionDatabase. Only has an output as a Boolean. And then the design for this, sorry, that popped up on the other screen. I call a business object method because I wanted to do this without any code. If you're doing code, then you can access the database directly, pull stuff out. But I was trying to stick with the widgets. So I called the sys agent get default task agent. Now, how did I know that's the right method? Because I went to Epicor help, the REST API. I looked at sys agent and I started playing with these methods. And when I went with get default task agent, and I just did the execute because this doesn't take any parameters. So I did the execute. Hey, I can get my root file dir. Trust me, it's in here somewhere. I swear it was. Agent, file root dir. There it is. So again, ours is blank, but I'm going to use agent ID just for this. But you could call this and you would look for your file root dir. Then what I did, I just call that method. I set its return value to a new variable. So when you drop down this binding, you can say set it to a new variable. I called that variable sysAgentInfo. Then in my set argument variable, I set the output, which is a system Boolean, equal to an expression, which is, I just went over to my sysAgentInfo, my sysagent, and I grabbed the agent ID, do the double equals because it's comparison in C#, equal to system task agent. So that's going to return a true or a false. That's my output value. And then you can call this in a BPM, which I didn't really go through the BPM part, but I brought up a BPM for you. Where'd my BPM go? I think I have to get rid of view so that I can look at the BPM. There we go. So just a simple BPM. You can come over here and you can say invoke a function. You can call that function, and then if that value, so when you configure your parameters, you're going to store that output into a new variable, then you can just do a condition and say, if that variable is true, do this. If it's false, do this. So then you're set up. So you have to do 2 widgets inside of your BPMs to figure out if it's production or not. But if you just start creating, okay, this is always the start of my BPM, is do a start, call the function, call the condition, then you're set. Does that make sense, Kevin?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Apparently, the answer to my question was please link that resource, was also please let's get him to share the function.
Oh, yeah, I can share the function. Just remember what I did. Whoops, let me get out of this. I don't want to save my changes. That's the BPM. In the design of the function, just keep in mind that I am comparing on agent ID, and they told you to compare on root file dir or file root dir, this guy. So you'll need to change that and then set this to be whatever that value is in that VAQ, so that you've got the right values that Epicor is telling you to look at.
Okay.
And the help file, I think that's what you were looking for.
Yeah.
This guy. Yeah. So this is your server instance, and then just do API/help. And that'll bring you up to the screen, and then you can click on the 9 dots here, and you can search for any of the REST API calls. So I just searched for sysagent.
Okay.
Click
Yeah,
on it.
I'm actually remembering that one now. I keep forgetting that one's there.
So it's pretty easy to work with. The help's kind of nice for this version of the help out here. But I can get you all, you're in cloud, so we're good. I'm like, make sure I'm not too advanced function for you. I can export that function and include it in the minutes for you. I'll export it as a JSON, so it hopefully will go in just fine.
Right. I think maybe I'll be able to go ahead and get it recreated too. So,
Okay, sounds good.
all right. Thank you very much.
And I'll send it back over to you, Calvin.
Sorry, I had to send a message to say, hey, ask Fred to share it. Okay. Susan, we already hit yours from earlier, but I had a copy of that also emailed in.
Yeah.
Gary, you had a revenue recognition glitch. Are you out there, Gary? I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Yeah, we actually noticed, excuse me, we actually noticed that we had a project that the revenue was basically reversing out. And and then whenever I would actually go back and actually tell it to recalculate to budget or to revenue recognition, it would add it back in. But every time it was running the actual analysis, it was zeroing the revenue back out of it. And this is what I basically had seen going through all the stuff. This was actually in the revenue recognition transaction tables and revenue. Where I have that highlighted there.
Results of the TRAN number.
But it's like we have 400 active projects and it's only done it on 3. And I was just like, has anybody else seen this?
Does this project have a different TRAN GL control code assigned to it that might be overing the default deferred revenue on the company?
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about because I've actually only been working here on Epicor about 18 months total, and 6 of those months I was basically not really working on it. I was actually doing some completely other work.
Sorry, I hate having 5 monitors. You never know where the screen's going to open. And it's going to open behind Epicor. Got it. So here in project entry, you can override the default with deferred revenue and put a GL control on a project and have it override what's set up on the deferred revenue on the company configuration. I'm wondering if these 3 projects had an alternate GL control put on them rather than leaving it blank.
I'm opening them right now so I can take a look at them.
There's not a lot of things that are going to override the logic behind the sequence of the transaction unless you have a custom posting rule in there. But then I would think that the posting rule would affect all, not just some. Unless it was really programmed.
In those fields, we actually use codes on there because we have like 4 to 6 different types of products. And they basically use that to drive the revenue to a particular class. So I looked at a project that's not having a problem, and I looked at one that is having a problem, and all of that matches up.
Okay, then the only other place I would think is a posting rule change. When deferred revenue runs, it alters what values are being saved into the fields, because I would never see where the tran number is the same as the sequence number. So under your GL transaction type, wow, people are going to know when I click a Epicor button which screen it popped up on, because I don't know. If we pull up the transaction type for the deferred revenue, are we using base standard, or do you have a customized one or an extended? I just want to make sure you're not using a customized one.
Yeah, I'm trying to get there.
With 400 projects, I'm going to say you're doing a lot of revenue recognition and getting a lot of system generated transactions. The other way that you could do that is when you're doing your revenue recognition, put your transaction type in review. Then all of the transactions end up in the review journal before they get posted to the GL, where you can review them in the review journal and see what's going on each one. Now, there would be a lot of them. All 400 are active at the same time?
It's really complicated. There's probably 200 that are not active, but because we do manufacturing and then we do all this installation, and they leave them open for a long time. And then there's also a lot of times there's retainage. So,
but if there's no transactions, you're not going to have a lot in the batch when you run the revenue recognition process.
If there's no transactions, it's not going to have anything. Every one of these were actually active projects whenever the problem basically started.
So this might be another way to do it, is put it in a manual review. Now, every time you run the revenue recognition, you'll have to go into the review journal to see it, because it'll get stuck there.
Right.
When you look through the review journal, you can see the accounts and the references of what's going on and where things are going to go. Once you isolate it on the actions menu, you can say confirm and push it through, and the review journal will allow it to continue on and post.
So I went to
have that extra step where you could review it.
Right. So I did go to this GL transaction type, went to the revisions. Ours are all blank.
When you select the transaction type, you don't have anything for deferred revenue?
Nope.
Are you running deferred revenue, or are you running projects?
Projects.
I'm sorry, I thought it was going through deferred revenue.
Is that the revenue recognition, project revenue recognition, 4 from the bottom?
Thank you. Do you have a revenue recognition option in your transaction types?
Yes, I do. I don't, it's not populated, but yes, I do have that option.
But there's nothing in it.
Correct. Yeah, there's actually nothing in any of those fields regardless of what top selection you make or the others, like on revisions going across the ones that drop down below it.
Okay.
There's
This
nothing.
is probably going to be a definite stump the chump because I'm not sure how you're getting either deferred revenue or project revenue being recognized. You would have to go through one of these two items. I don't think you're just doing projects through a product group. Yeah, it's going through the revenue recognition module, recalculating this recognition again. If you don't have a GL control set up for the revenue recognition, this could be a problem as to where it's throwing or posting things.
Okay.
Anybody on the call using projects and able to share how they set their system up with Gary? I just went through the list of attendees, Gary. I don't see anyone I know offhand that is using this.
Okay. Well, it may be another one of those I have to work with Epicor directly, and I've had to do that with 3 or 4 things. So
Okay. Sorry, that one's kind of got me stumped. Unless digging into this much deeper, it's just not going to be a stump the chump type question. But we'll see if we can find someone that can help you get along and get through this hurdle.
I appreciate it.
This one we've already hit with Susan. Let me check if there were any others. The revenue recognition. And our last one was from Susan, and this was the issue we already handled and put a feather in her hat and sent her off with a pat on the head. I think that hit everything. Did you have any others that were emailed to you, Fred, or submitted through the Q&A?
Q&A definitely not, and I'm digging through emails. I don't see any. So I think we're good.
I mean, we finished 12 minutes early. That never happens.
Woohoo!
I think David was the last one. Yeah.
I mean, I can always
Anybody
come up
have-
with more questions.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody have other questions that they want to throw out? And I'm not meaning throw out at the group. Throw them out your front door. Awesome. This is kind of good. I can go ahead and kill the Stump the Chump panel then. There's nothing has popped in here.
All right. Just a reminder to people, that should be getting a survey, whether it pops up right when you end or if it gets emailed to you tonight or tomorrow. Please do answer that. It gives us feedback on how presenters went, how the topics went, what you want to see. And there is a question on there of what do you want to see in the future? So please help us out. We'll try and find presenters for the things that you request. We just need to know what is of interest.
Sounds great. And Andy and Phil, thank you so much for joining and helping out. Andy, the content was wonderphil. Well, you stole my thunder, but my topic was kind of lame, so I ended up having to just remake it, but it worked out really well today. And Phil, I haven't seen EDA probably in about 3 years. I want to say Christine was the last person we had at the user group doing a demo for you guys. So it's good that you guys came back in and kind of brought everybody up to speed on what's new.
All right, if there's no other questions, I think we're at a wrap here.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the week. And if you're in the Midwest, enjoy the 70 degrees tomorrow. It'll be really wonderful for a day.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.